In a village ruled by fear and silence, one young woman holds a secret older than time. Elara's heart is torn between forbidden love and the ancient magic whispering beneath her skin. As the witching hour approaches, every choice she makes will shape her destiny or destroy it. If you enjoy immersive storytelling and haunting myths, give this video a like. And thank you for being here. Chapter 1. Shadows Beneath the Crossroads. The village of Gloam Hollow sat at the edge of the woods, where the trees grew thick and the sun forgot to shine. The streets were crooked. The roofs were thatched. Smoke from chimneys curled like secrets into the sky. At its heart stood a stone well, dry now, where people once whispered prayers. And just beyond the chapel's bell, the old crossroads split into 4 paths. North to the mountains, east to the river, south to the market town, and west, straight into the woods no one dared name. No one, that is, except Elara. She was 17 winters old, small for her age, with hair the colour of dusk and eyes like green glass. She wore no ribbons, owned no jewels, and walked barefoot through the meadows as if the grass belonged to her. Her mother, long dead, had been a midwife. Her father, long gone, had been a man the village no longer spoke of. Elara lived with her aunt now, near the edge of town. A quiet woman, sharp-eyed and kind, who sold herbs no one asked about, but always bought. The villagers called Elara odd, which in Gloam Hollow was a word that meant too quiet, too clever, too close to things that didn't belong to men. She didn't mind. She liked the silence. She liked the way animals followed her. She liked the way the wind changed when she stood near trees. But she had learned, early, to keep her head down. Because in Gloam Hollow, people remembered. They remembered stories of witches burned on hillsides, of women drowned in holy water, of laughter punished with fire. They remembered, and they watched. On the day the story begins, the air held the weight of something unspoken. The harvest was late. The birds flew south too soon. And in the chapel, Father Aldred's sermons grew louder, like he was preaching against something not yet named. Elara stood at the crossroads that morning with a basket of roots in her arms. Her fingers were stained with soil and yarrow. A crow landed on the signpost beside her. It stared. She stared back. Not yet, she whispered to it, half smiling. The crow blinked and flew away. Behind her, the village stirred. Children chased geese through the mud. A merchant shouted about onions. A widow swept her stoop and muttered about omens. Life went on, stubborn and slow. But beneath it all, a hum. Something in the wind. Something waiting. Later that day, Elara visited the forest edge. Not far, just close enough to see the mushrooms that grew in fairy circles. Close enough to hear the rustle of things that did not have names. There, beneath an ash tree, she laid her palm to the ground, closed her eyes and listened. The earth was tired. The roots were restless, and something deeper, older, stirred like a sleeping beast. She opened her eyes. A deer watched her from between the trees, not startled, just curious. "Elara," a voice called, far off. "Elara, come home." It was her aunt. The moment broke. That night, as the village shuttered windows and lit candles against the dark, Elara sat by the hearth reading an old book without a title. The pages smelled of moss. The ink shimmered slightly in candlelight. "Another charm?" her aunt asked, kneading dough. "Just stories," Elara replied, though her fingers traced the shape of runes she half remembered. Her aunt gave her a look. Stories become trouble in the wrong mouthed. "I know." Outside, The bell rang for vespers, then silence, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. Elara stood. She went to the window and saw him. A horse, a rider, a stranger at the edge of town, cloak dark as raven's wing, face shadowed beneath a hood, and yet the shape of him burned into her like the end of a dream she couldn't recall. He looked once toward her window, then rode on. "Who was that?" she asked softly. Her aunt paused, wiped her hands. "No one we need to know." But the way her voice tightened said otherwise. The next morning, Elara returned to the crossroads. She stood where the rider had passed. There, on the dusty path, a single hoof print lingered, deeper than it should have been. She bent and touched it. Warm. From behind her came laughter. Not cruel, not yet. She turned to see Rowan, son of Lord Thorn, dressed in hunting leathers, bow slung across his back. "You talk to horses now?" he asked, teasing. "Sometimes they talk back," she said. That made him smile. They'd spoken once before, at market. He'd bought her aunt's salve for a wound on his hand. Elara had told him how to use it. He'd asked her name. She hadn't answered. Now she did. "Elara." He bowed, mock formal. "Rowan." They talked for longer than they should have. About hawks and weather. About dreams and silence. About what it meant to feel like you didn't belong to the world you were born into. Rowan was kind, curious, and utterly forbidden. A nobleman's son, meant for war or marriage. She, a girl with dirt on her hands and the forest in her blood. Still, when he left, he said, "Same time tomorrow." Elara nodded. That night, she dreamed of fireflies. They danced in circles above the well. The crossroads glowed with silver light. And in the centre stood a figure cloaked in black, holding a candle that did not burn. A voice whispered, "The witching hour is coming." Elara woke with a gasp. The moon had shifted. The shadows were deeper than they should have been. And far off, near the edge of the woods, a crow called once, long and low. Chapter 2. Secrets. Bloom at dusk. The sun hung low behind the hills, painting the sky with gold and shadow. In Gloam Hollow, twilight was not just an ending, it was a pause, a breath, a space between what was seen and what was whispered. And in that space, Elara walked again toward the crossroads. She carried no basket this time. Only a sprig of rosemary tucked behind her ear, and a memory of Rowan's smile, folded quietly in her chest. He was already there. Leaning against the old signpost, bow slung over one shoulder, eyes lit by the last light of day. "You're late," he said, though she wasn't. "You're early," she replied, though he wasn't either. And like that, the silence between them softened. They walked together, slow steps over wild grass. He asked about plants. Which one's healed? Which one's harmed? She answered with care, naming each with a quiet kind of pride. Yarrow for wounds, lavender for sleep, wolfsbane for warning. She didn't mention the herbs she wasn't supposed to know, the ones that whispered their names to her in dreams. In return, Rowan told her about the castle, how cold the stone halls felt, how his father expected him to speak with swords, not stories. "I like it better here," he said, "out where things grow." Elara smiled. "Things grow in silence." Rowan looked at her. "Is that why you're so quiet?" She looked away. "I only speak when someone listens." The wind shifted. The sky darkened. They both turned, drawn to the rustle of birds overhead. A murder of crows flew east, cutting the dusk with black wings. Rowan reached gently for Elara's hand. Not bold, not rushed, just a question asked without words. She let him hold it, Their fingers touched like two secrets meeting in the dark. After that night, they met often. By the well, by the meadow, by the forest's edge. Never in daylight, always in twilight. When the village turned inward and the shadows lengthened. Each meeting was a risk. Rowan's family would never allow it. Her aunt would never approve. But love does not ask permission. It grows where it's told not to. And in Elara, something else was growing too. Not just love, but power. The plants near her home bloomed faster now. She could sense illness in animals before it showed. When she sang, quietly, without thinking, the wind leaned in to listen. One night, she stood at the forest's edge, alone. She held her hand above the earth. A single green shoot rose from the soil, slow, steady, answering her without fear. She gasped, and someone behind her clapped once. She spun. A figure in a grey cloak stood beneath the trees, face hidden, staff carved with runes, eyes old, very old. Elara, they said, like a name remembered. She stepped back. Who are you? The figure smiled. A keeper of doors, a walker of dusk, an elder, though not the kind who preaches in chapels. Are you a witch? Number, but I know what they were. They did not step closer. They did not threaten. Instead, they pointed toward the horizon. The witching hour approaches, the elder said. The veil between what is and what was grows thin. You have roots in both. Then they were gone. No sound, no trail. Only a single feather left behind, white as bone. Elara picked it up. It pulsed warm in her hand. That night, her dreams deepened. She stood in a field of stars. Voices hummed beneath the soil. The moon above her cracked open, and inside it, a single golden thread glowed like a promise. She reached for it. She awoke with the feather still in her hand. It hadn't faded. It hadn't vanished. And somewhere in her heart, something had begun to wake. The next evening, Rowan found her sitting by the well. She didn't smile. What's wrong? He asked, crouching beside her. She held out the feather. He didn't understand. But he listened. She told him everything, about the plants, the dreams, the stranger in the woods, the way the forest whispered to her when no one else could hear. Rowan said nothing for a long time. Then, you're not wicked. I might be. No, he said, you're rare. She looked at him then, really looked, not just as the noble's son, but as someone who saw her, even in shadow. If they find out, she said, they'll burn me. He took her hand. Then they'll burn me too. The bell rang from the chapel. Late vespers. They both flinched. He leaned in, software unsure, certain, and kissed her. It was a kiss, not of fire, but of quiet understanding, of two lives brushing against fate and deciding, just for a moment, to ignore it. They parted without words. But the wind followed Elara home that night, and it whispered, everything is about to change. Chapter 3. The Whispering Elder. The forest waited for her. Not the edge, not the places where children dared each other to creep before running back to firelight and safety. No. Elara stepped deeper now, past the thickets, past the fox dens and mushroom circles, into silence. The trees grew taller here, wider, their branches knotted with secrets. The moss hummed beneath her feet like an old lullaby. Elara walked with steady breath, not brave, not fearless, but pulled, as if the path knew her name before she ever spoke it. The feather still hung from her neck. She wore it on a leather cord tucked beneath her tunic. It pulsed warm whenever she neared the ancient places, like it remembered something she did not. Birdsong faded. Even the wind grew still. Then, without warning, the forest opened. A clearing. circular, perfectly quiet. At its center, a stone, smooth, flat, carved with symbols she couldn't read but somehow understood. Waiting beside it stood the elder. They did not look up as she entered. They traced a spiral into the dirt with the end of their staff, then looked up, eyes dark and deep as river stones. "You came," Elara swallowed. "I had questions," the elder nodded. "You have answers too. You just don't know where you put them." They motioned to the stone. She sat without asking. The elder sat too, not across from her, but beside her, like a teacher or a parent or both. "Tell me," they said. "What do you know of your mother?" Elara blinked. She was kind, gentle. People trusted her. They came to her with sick children. She died when I was 6. "And your father?" Elara hesitated. "I never knew him. My aunt doesn't speak of him." "Good," the elder said, "because his name no longer matters." Elara frowned. "What do you mean?" "You are not born of him," they said. "You are born of her line, and her line is very old." They reached into a satchel and pulled out a bundle of cloth, unwrapped it. Inside, a scrap of woven blue silk, embroidered with stars and roots and fire. "This," they said, "was your mother's birth cloth. The symbol here," they pointed, "belongs to the ones who listen." "The what?" The elder leaned closer. "Long before the priests built stone chapels, long before kings carved borders into land, there were those who listened to the world, to rivers, to bones, to breath. They were witches," Elara whispered. "No," the elder said firmly. "They were wise." They stood, stepped into the circle, spoke words she did not understand, yet somehow echoed in her chest. The clearing brightened, not with sun but with silver. The earth itself shimmered. "This is what you carry," the elder said. "A gift, a burden, a choice." "Then I am," Elara faltered. The word hung on her tongue. "Witch, cursed, marked." "No," the elder said again. "You are what you choose to become. But you must know, the world does not forget power, even when it forgets kindness." They drew a line in the dirt between them. "Elara of the Hollow, do you know what happens when the veil thins?" She shook her head. "The witching hour is not just midnight," the elder said. "It is a breath, a boundary. When the world blinks, and in that blink, all truths become clear. Truths like what I am. Truths like what you might need to become." They lifted their staff. The spiral they'd drawn began to glow. "It is coming," they said. "Faster than you think." Elara stood. "What is?" "Change." The spiral faded. The elder looked suddenly tired. "There is a sickness growing in your village," they said. "I know," Elara whispered. "Children coughing. Livestock dying. It is not natural." "Is it me?" The elder's eyes snapped to hers. "Number, but they will say it is." The silence that followed was heavy. "You must choose, Elara. Hide and lose yourself, or stand in truth and risk being burned." "I don't want to hurt anyone." "Then learn to protect them." The wind stirred. The clearing dimmed. The elder stepped forward, took Elara's hands. "When the hour comes, the veil will lift. You will see through it, and you will decide who you truly are." They pressed something into her palm, a small stone amulet shaped like a crescent. "Elara," they said softly, "not every fire is meant to destroy. Some fires are meant to reveal." And then they were gone. No sound, no footsteps. Only the spiral still glowing faintly in the soil. Elara walked home beneath a rising moon. Her thoughts were loud, louder than the owls, louder than the quiet longing for Rowan. She held the amulet tightly. It pulsed like a second heartbeat. At her door, her aunt met her with tired eyes. You were with him again, she said. Elara flinched. No. A pause. Not tonight. Her aunt stepped aside. Come in. Washington sleep. Something is coming. Elara turned. You feel it too? Her aunt gave her a small, sad smile. I've always felt it. That night, the winds changed. In the chapel, Father Aldred looked to the stars and frowned. In the manor, Lord Thorn ordered his men to double the watch. In the fields, the crops rustled, though no breeze touched them. And far beneath the earth, something old stirred. In her dreams, Elara stood at the crossroads again. All 4 paths were open. All 4 paths were burning. Chapter 4. Love in the Time of Fire. The fire in the fields began small. A single patch of wheat scorched to ash one morning, blackened with no sign of lightning or torch. The village whispered. Father Aldred preached. The word omen hung in the air like smoke no one could see. Elara stood at the edge of the ruin, silent. She felt the soil with her bare hands. The ground beneath the fire was cold, lifeless. The roots had died first. Whatever had done this, it hadn't come from above. It had come from below. That night, Rowan found her at the edge of the well. The moon was low. Her face was pale. His voice was quiet. You look different. I feel different. They didn't touch. Not yet. The silence between them was thick. I keep thinking about what you said, Rowan continued. About the witching hour. Elara looked at him. Do you believe it? He nodded once. I believe you. She told him what the elder had said. About her mother. The power that stirred in her bones. The veil that would soon lift. He didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped forward, placed his hand over hers and whispered, Then I'll face it with you. The wind rustled around them like an answer. They kissed again, slower, deeper, and this time it was not just longing. It was choice, a vow made beneath stars. But not all things in Gloam Hollow slept well that night. In the chapel, Father Aldred stared at his candles as one by one they snuffed out. In the manor, Lord Thorn heard whispers in his sleep, and in the fields, foxes ran from something they couldn't see. The illness struck harder the next morning. 2 children, pale, fevered. Their mothers wept outside the chapel while the priest offered prayers too late. Elara brought willow bark and cloth soaked in feverfew. She didn't ask. She simply helped. But one of the mothers stepped back. Don't touch him, she hissed. You bring this with you. I'm trying to help. With poison. It's medicine. It's witchcraft. The word hit like ice. Others gathered, some nodded, some looked away. Rowan stood by her side, a hand on his sword hilt, but said nothing. The crowd parted before him, but the fear lingered. Elara walked away without another word. Back at home, her aunt stood at the window. They're turning. Elara leaned her head against the wall. I haven't done anything wrong. That won't matter. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she lit a single candle and read the old book again. The one without a title, ink that shimmered like breath. This time, the pages answered her. Not with words, but with images. A binding circle, a healing song, a sigil for protection. And one final warning. Magic, drawn from fear, feeds the fire. By morning, the village had changed. Whispers filled the market. Crosses were painted on doors. And the chapel bell rang every hour. A drumbeat of dread. Elara stepped lightly, watching for shadows that followed too closely. In the field behind the chapel, she found a dying rabbit. Breath shallow, eyes wild. She held it gently, hummed an old song her mother used to sing. The rabbit grew still, then peaceful, then gone. She buried it beneath the old tree at the crossroads. Rowan met her there. They're planning something, he said. Elara, my father said your name today. He wants proof. She met his eyes. I don't have proof. You have power. A long pause. I can hide you, he said. I can take you to the coast. There are boats. I'm not running. Elara. Number. She stepped forward. This isn't just about me. Something else is happening. The sickness, the crops. It's deeper than they know. You think it's the elder? Number, they warned me. Then what? I don't know. The wind shifted. A chill crawled up her spine. She turned. At the edge of the field, a figure stood watching. Cloaked. Still. Then gone. Rowan drew his blade. Who was that? I don't know. But they've been near me before. That night, the chapel caught fire. Not flames, not yet. But the altar cloth burned around the edges. The holy water turned dark. The priest claimed it was a test from God. But others whispered, it's her. By morning, they came to her door. 4 men, Father Aldred, and Rowan's older brother, Lyle Thorne. They knocked. Her aunt answered, calm, hands clean. They asked for Elara. She stepped forward. Lyle's eyes flicked to Rowan, who stood behind her. You'll come with us, Lyle said. There are questions. What kind? About the sickness, the fire, the well water. Father Aldred added softly, about your soul. Elara looked at Rowan. He nodded, just once, then stepped aside. She went with them, not as a prisoner, as a storm waiting to be named. Chapter 5. The witch hunt begins. The chapel bell rang through the square again, louder this time, but no one pulled the rope. It swung on its own, creaking in rhythm with a wind that chilled the bone. Elara stood in the centre, hands at her sides, hair swept wild by the gust. Across from her, Father Aldred gripped his book tighter. Lyle Thorne's jaw clenched. The villagers whispered. Rowan stepped between them. You saw that? The bell. No one touched it. She made it happen, Lyle snapped. I didn't, Elara said calmly. But something did. A voice cut through the murmurs. Old, firm, female. She's not the cause. Heads turned. It was Aunt Mira, stepping from the crowd, skirts dusty, eyes sharp. She's the warning. The crowd parted, uncertain. She walks in power, Mira continued. Yes, but not in malice. The real danger hides in robes and rules. Lyle snarled. Are you accusing the church? I'm accusing fear. The wind died. The bell stilled, but the fire had already caught. Not in the wood, but in the hearts of those watching. Father Aldred spoke low. If she's innocent, let her prove it. Let her submit to the trial. What trial? Rowan demanded. The oldest kind, said Lyle. The water. Gasps rose. Elara's mouth went dry. They would bind her, lower her into the village well. If she floated, she was a witch. If she drowned, innocent. Too late either way. No, Rowan said, stepping forward. But Elara touched his arm. Let them see, she whispered. I won't run. You'll die. She met his eyes. I won't. That night, the well square was lit with torches. Villagers formed a silent ring. Some held hands. Others crossed themselves. At the edge of the crowd, Aunt Mira knelt in prayer. Not to the gods of the chapel, but to older ones. Father Aldred read from scripture. Lyle tied the rope around Elara's wrists. Rowan stood beside the well, face pale with fury. I'll pull you out, he said. I know. They lowered her slowly. Water touched her feet, her knees, her waist. It was colder than she imagined, not just wet, but ancient, like it remembered. When she was halfway down, the wind returned. But this wind carried voices. 12, 100, whispers from beyond the veil. The rope trembled. Elara closed her eyes. Let the water rise. Her heart slowed, her breath stilled. The water swallowed her. Darkness. Silence. Then, light. Not from above, but from within. The amulet at her throat pulsed, the feather glowed softly. And before her, beneath the surface, something shimmered. A face, not hers, her mother, eyes like moss and moonlight. Do not run, child, the voice said in her mind. Become. Then, hands, real ones, pulling. She broke the surface, coughing, gasping. Rowan dragged her up. The crowd was shouting now, split between awe and accusation. She didn't drown, someone screamed. She's cursed. She's chosen, Mira answered. Father Aldred raised his hand. She lives, yes, but the sickness grows. The soil spoils, the air thickens, her presence corrupts. No, Elara said, weak but clear. Something else is corrupting this place. I felt it, seen it. She looked to the woods. A shape moved behind the tree line. Not the elder, but someone taller, twisted, watching. That night, Elara was locked in the chapel cellar. Rowan argued, Mira begged. The priest would not relent. She will be judged again at dawn. The stone room was cold, damp, lined with old relics and rusted chains. Elara sat in silence, eyes closed, calling out to anything that would answer. The amulet warmed, the feather glowed. But no one came, until they did. A voice behind her. You walked into their fire and didn't flinch. You are ready. She turned. The elder stood there, taller now, wrapped in shadow and moonlight. The hour is near, they said. The veil thins. Do you feel it? Elara nodded. I saw my mother. The elder smiled. Then you've begun. Elara stood. What's happening to the village? There's a rot inside it, the elder said, fed by fear, grown by someone who hides among them. Who? The elder didn't answer, but they handed her a small vial of silver liquid. When the hour strikes, drink this, then listen. To what? The truth. At sunrise, the cellar was empty. Elara was gone. The chains were untouched. The door locked from the outside. Only one thing left behind. The spiral, drawn in ash. The village searched, frenzied, desperate. Father Aldred called her escape-proof of guilt. Lyle gathered men with torches. Rowan vanished. Elara ran through the forest, deeper than before. The veil around her thinned. Reality wavered. Birds paused mid-air. Leaves shimmered. Voices hummed through the soil. At the clearing, the elder waited. Elara arrived breathless. Where is it? She asked. The elder pointed to the horizon. There, where roots rot and truth sleeps. Together, they walked through the trees until the chapel bells sounded again. 12 times. Midnight bells, rung at dawn. The witching hour had begun. Chapter 6. The witching hour. 12 bells. 12 echoes, and with the 12th, the world breathed in, then forgot to exhale. The wind stopped. The birds vanished. Time itself bent at the edges. It was the witching hour. Elara stood at the tree line, the elder beside her. The sky had gone violet grey. Not dark, not light, something in between. Like the world had cracked open just wide enough to let something ancient crawl through. Now, the elder whispered, you must see clearly. They handed Elara the vial of silver liquid. She drank. It tasted like metal and memory. The forest shivered. Then it changed. The trees stretched impossibly tall. The ground glowed faintly beneath her bare feet. And through it all, a low hum vibrated in her bones, a sound not heard with ears, but remembered by the soul. From the fog, shapes emerged. Spirits. Dozens of them. Some with faces. Some without. Eyes glowing, hands reaching. They surrounded her, silent, watching. One stepped forward. Her mother. "Elara," she said, voice soft as wind through reeds. "You carry all of us. You carry our story." Tears blurred Elara's vision. "What do I do?" "Finish what we began, break the silence, bring the truth into the light." Then the spirits parted, and the villain stepped into view. Father Aldred. Not the man she'd known. Twisted now, taller. His robes black with shadow, his eyes burning gold. "You should have drowned," he hissed. The elder stepped forward. "False priest," they said, "you feed the villagers fear to grow your own power." He smiled. "Fear is easy to grow. Faith takes too long." "You poison them," Elara whispered. "The sickness, the fire. It was you. Fear makes people obedient. You were a threat to obedience." The fog pulsed. The spirits circled him. But he lifted a hand, and with it, darkness spread like ink. The spirits recoiled. "You cannot fight me," Aldred growled. "You are a girl with old stories. I am the voice they believe." Elara stepped forward. "No," she said. "You're just the last shadow of a fading lie." She lifted her hands. The amulet around her neck glowed. The feather burst into flame, gentle, golden, rising into the air. The earth answered. Roots twisted up from below, circling her wrists, her ankles, holding her steady, not binding her. And light, her light, blazed from her chest. The spirits surged forward, called by her power. Aldred screamed, raising both hands, but this time his shadow did not respond. It fled. He tried to run. Roots caught him. The spirits surrounded him. And Elara, heart pounding, steady now, stepped into the center and whispered a word she'd never been taught, but always known. The shadow split. The light filled the clearing. And then, silence. When the light faded, he was gone. Only his robe remained, crumpled like ash. The spirits bowed. Then, one by one, they faded into the trees. The elder looked at her with something between pride and sorrow. "You did what many cannot," they said. "You saw with your own eyes, and chose not fear, but truth." Elara stood in the clearing alone. The trees were still. The veil had closed. The hour had passed, and the world was waking. Back in the village, the sickness lifted that very night. The fog broke. The well ran clear. Children laughed in the streets without coughing. They never found Father Aldred. But when Elara returned, dirty, barefoot, glowing softly from within, they didn't speak his name again. Not out loud. Not ever. Chapter 7. After the fire. The village woke to birdsong. Real, bright, unafraid. For the first time in weeks, the morning sun broke fully over the rooftops, warm and golden, not hidden behind clouds or whispers. Gloam Hollow felt different. Not new, not fixed, but breathing again. The chapel doors stayed closed. The bell didn't ring. No one mentioned Father Aldred. Elara returned to her home at dawn. Her aunt stood waiting in the doorway. No words, just a long embrace, the kind you only give when something old has ended and something new begins. Rowan found her later, beside the well. He didn't speak at first, just walked up slowly, placed a hand over hers, and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. "I thought I lost you," he said. "You didn't. I couldn't stop them. You didn't have to." They sat together in silence. A bird landed on the rim of the well and sang. "What happens now?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, "but I think the village will need time. Time to believe you. Number. Time to believe themselves." She looked at the water below. Clear now, cold, still. A mirror for what had been. In the days that followed, people changed, but quietly. The baker left bread at her doorstep. The blacksmith's wife brought honey. Children waved when they saw her on the path. Some didn't speak. Some still looked away. But the fear had lessened. The hush had lifted, and the forest began to grow again. Green returned to the meadows. Crops rose strong. Even the animals no longer ran from the trees. The elder visited one last time, at dusk, beneath the ash tree. "You've done well," they said. "I feel like I've only just begun." "You have," they said. "But the worst is behind you." They handed her a pouch. Inside, seeds, small, simple, ordinary to any other eye. "What are these?" "Stories," the elder said, "in root form." Then they vanished. Not into the trees, just gone, as if they had only ever been part of the veil. Elara planted the seeds the next morning, in a quiet grove near the Crossroads, where fire once threatened, where voices once judged. Now, a garden would grow. Rowan left the manor, not in disgrace, by choice. He said titles didn't matter when the land beneath them was poisoned by lies. He built a small house near the forest's edge, and when people needed help, they came to him too. Elara never called herself a witch. She called herself a listener, to trees, to wind, to fear, to love. They called her wise. They called her healer. They called her strange, but never again did they call her danger. Years passed. The village changed. New names, new crops, new stories. But the crossroads remained, and the well, and the forest, always watching. And on certain nights, when the wind blew just right, and the bell did not ring, people swore they heard voices in the trees. Soft ones, old ones, telling stories of a girl who chose truth over fire. The witching hour never truly ended. It simply moved from fear to memory. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Elara's world, where love, courage, and old magic still burn quietly beneath the surface. If the witching hour stirred something in you, I invite you to explore more of these mythic tales. Stories help us see ourselves more clearly, even in the dark. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and return for more lore and lunacy.